So what's your line of work, Edward? IT. Okay. So here's the thing. When things go wrong in IT, you try and fix them, I guess. Um, but often at an insurance company, okay, thank you. So often things go wrong. When you are trying to explain to somebody what's going wrong, or when you're trying to, worse than that, you're trying to figure out what's going wrong because you don't actually know. You talk to colleagues and you start and people who also know what you do. You talk to them and when everything is, this is not just IT, this is any process, when everything's going smoothly, you kind of don't need to tell a story because things are working. You can cut things right down to almost like the shorthand, the shortest possible explanation of what's going on. So you can give a process a name and you can say, have they done this? You go, yeah, they've done that. Everything's working. You don't need to tell a story. So here's the thing. When something doesn't work and you need to figure out why it's not working, well, you kind of actually what you're going into is a sort of storytelling behavior because first thing you do, I'm guessing, Edward, you tell me if I'm wrong here. First thing you do is you talk to the customer. So you talk to the person who you're helping and you try and get from them a description of what's going wrong. Now, if they're not IT experts, they're going to tell you in IT terms. They're going to actually tell you a story. Well, I tried to do this and this happened. You know what they're saying, or I'm really frustrated that this is happening. So what they're saying is, look, here's a scenario where something is supposed to happen. Okay, well, that's sort of like a little story. The thing isn't happening and it's causing me grief, anxiety, frustration. Okay, so it's a story. And you're exploring in this conversation with them, you're trying to get as detailed a picture as you can get. So it's interesting here. You're trying to diagnose what's wrong, but you're not doing it. You're getting them to tell you a story. And then when you try and apply a solution, if you get a really tricky problem that just won't fix, won't get solved, you call some colleagues in to help you. And you end up kind of rehearsing the little story, both the customer's story and your story of the attempt to fix things. And so you are basically telling a little story. There's a comment that Susan made in the comment section earlier that in computer documentation, the story, the plot is hidden in the troubleshooting section. The troubleshooting sections are kind of little story-ish scenarios. I think this should happen, but it's not. And it's causing me trouble. So there's a couple of story elements that, Edward, it might be worth you looking at as a kind of starting point in terms of your work as a thinking, okay, I'm working in IT, but I am using stories. And there's two versions. There's kind of a high level conceptual card in the box that will help you. There's also kind of some immediate practical cards. So the high level conceptual card that I'd say is good to look at is in the concept cards in the box, which are the red ones. And the card you're looking for is, here we go, order and chaos. Yes. So this is the concept, this is what's going on underneath what you're trying to do in IT or any other service job, any other engineering job. Okay, you're trying to bring order to a potentially chaotic situation. Okay, and a good IT system for an insurance company or anybody else, a good IT system brings order. So, yep, the chaos of real life, the chaos of claims, the chaos of customers, and it all kind of gets sorted into manageable order by a good IT system. Okay, so on one level, when things are going well, you're managing to take the multiple chaotic potential possibility, all the things that could go wrong in the insurance world, you're organizing them into some sort of order. Okay, then the IT system breaks down. Yes, something goes wrong. Usually it's the stupid customer, stupid user. Yeah, user error. Yeah, okay. Okay, but something goes wrong. And your lovely orderly system has been thrown into a bit of chaos. And your job then is to figure out where's that chaos coming from and to try and get it back into a state of order. So That's, if you like, the high level story of what you're doing. You are, but also bear in mind, the thing that's going wrong could be because actually your system needs to be updated. So it could be that, yeah, there's something to do with consumer behavior, the way people are reporting, yeah, the way people are contacting the company, whatever it is, something's going wrong because you need to update. So it's this sense of, at the high level, that's what you're doing as an IT specialist in any company, is you're trying to bring order to chaos, which in itself is a pretty heroic, let's be honest, pretty heroic mission. Yeah, there's a lot of chaos out there. We don't like chaos. So, okay, you've got your sword and your shield, and you're going out there, and that in itself is a story framework that's worth thinking about. So, order and chaos is the first card to take a look at, and on order and chaos, it says, okay, on the back of the card, it says, okay, describe the known world. Okay, that's the world of order. So these are the systems. This is what it's meant to do. These are the inputs. These are the outputs. Yep, these are all the things that we know are right, and we want them to continue to be right. Then you describe the chaos. Well, the chaos is customers making errors, new technologies adding to the strain. I don't know whether at your company, do you allow people to bring their own device to work? Yes. Yeah. Okay. There's chaos there. Yes. Yeah. Every new phone, every new laptop, every update on software, some idiots plugged it into the system. And yeah, Edward's laughing. It clearly happens all the time. Okay. So you can map the chaos. Where's the chaos coming from? And you go, right, what is it? Well, what's our job to do? Well, in the story, right, in the story of your work, Edward, it's part 3. There's a moment, right, when chaos disrupts order. So some idiot came in this morning, plugged in a Huawei mobile phone to the network. It had software problems on it. The whole thing went crazy wrong. Or in the UK recently, we had a system failure in air traffic control because somebody in France filed an air traffic plan incorrectly, and the whole system fell down. Right. Okay. So for there to be a story, right, you have to have chaos for there to be a story. If all you've got is order, yeah, then actually it's pretty boring. So if everything is working smoothly, that's not a story you tend to tell. Right? So long as everything's running smoothly, you don't go around telling people, hey, we've had a fantastic day today. Nothing went wrong. And everyone goes, oh, a bit boring, actually, isn't it? So you actually, for the story, there has to be chaos. Yeah, something has to shake up your cozy little world. And then what obviously what flows from that is, okay, how did I, the hero of the story, or how did my team, the heroes of the story, how did we respond to the moment when chaos shook up our cozy little world? And that's basically the fundamentals of story. So, we would say in school, I don't think this is the same in the Netherlands, but in school in England, you're being told to write a story when you're a kid, and your teacher would say, a story has a beginning, middle, and end. Is that something you get in the Netherlands as well? Yeah. Story has a beginning, middle, and end. And you go, right, that's not very useful because a piece of string has a beginning, middle, and end. A sentence has a beginning, middle, and end. A paragraph has a beginning, middle, and end. So does that make it, does that mean it's a story? Well, no, clearly not. It's just a string of words. So what actually beginning, middle, and end means is order and chaos. In the beginning, everything's nice and orderly. In the middle, chaos comes up, bang. Yeah. And at the end, you sort it out. So it actually goes order, chaos, new order. As in, I've taken this chaos and I've turned it into a new order. And what's interesting about the new order is, apart from the Manchester music reference, a part of the new order is it's better than the old order. Yes. Because in the new order, you can say to people, please don't plug your Android phone into our system without checking first. Because what happened last time was, X, Y, and Z. So that's the place I'd start. Yeah, is with order and chaos, because that's your story. Okay, that's the story of everyone who works in any kind of engineering role, is keeping the chaos at bay. Okay, and it's great, and it's a heroic story. Okay, then, like I said before, the what's interesting about stories is when stuff goes wrong. Right, if nothing goes wrong, nothing changes, there's no chaos, you don't tell that story because it's actually boring. So you wouldn't tell that story. So you're waiting for stuff to go wrong. And then when stuff does go wrong, there's all sorts of ways you can think, okay, I'm going to tell a story about this thing that went wrong. And it kind of went wrong because everyone went, whoa. So you can, if you don't know where to find those moments, I need to find stories about my work. Well, this is a really good place to start. The emotional dashboard. Because in the emotional dashboard, what you're using emotions like little warning signs. When one of those little warning lights goes off on your car, you go, okay, it's time to check the oil pressure, time to check the tire pressure. Okay, it's sending you a little warning. And emotions do the same in life and in story. When you feel a strong emotion, particularly strong negative emotion, it's because you were expecting things to work out a particular way. That's the world of order. Yes, I came into work, I switched on my computer, I expected it to do this. I plugged in my Android phone and, oh, everything's gone funny. So that moment is, oh shit, have I broken it? Is an emotional state. The state of, that wasn't meant to happen. Oh no, was it my fault? Oh, am I in trouble? Yeah, all these emotions. So and what's great about emotions is, well, they're very easy to remember. I'm sure we can all remember moments in our lives where we've really done something really stupid and embarrassing, and go, oh God, I can't believe I did that. Oh, yeah. And those things I've done, mistakes I've made, where I kind of I can even cringe now thinking about them, and they were 25 years ago. Oh, what such a stupid thing to do. Right. So emotion is very closely attached to memory. Right, very closely attached to memory. So it's also incredibly closely attached to attention. So we notice emotion in other people and we remember emotion. So it's an incredibly powerful thing. Therefore, you need to have it in your story. So emotion will do two things. The first thing it will do is it will help you find a story. Okay, I need to tell a story about order and chaos. I need to find the moment when chaos breaks in, because that's the beginning, middle, and end. The middle is the chaos. So I need to find a moment. Okay. Therefore, I need to look for an emotional reaction. The time when everybody went, oh, you've done what? Or, oh God, I don't believe, oh shit. Or this is driving me crazy. Yeah, all of these emotional reactions. They tell you, so emotions are telling you effectively when your nice, orderly world has been messed up. Okay. So then what do? Well, then you use the emotion. You think, right, okay, I've got a nice little story I can tell now. Something's gone wrong and I had to fix it. There's lots of story cards you can use on this, but a really good, reliable one. Yep. A really good, reliable card for this is the one called Man in a Hole. Yep. Because it kind of has a beginning, middle, and end structure as well. Because on the back of the card, it displays like, oh, can you see that? Yes, you can. It's like an arc, and I'll sort of try and draw it out with my hand. So effectively, it's called Man in a Hole because the story arc kind of starts like this, and it kind of goes along, and then it goes whoa, and then it climbs back up again. to this level here. And so you can imagine, if you look at the story arc of Man in a Hole, you can imagine a man like walking along, like this, minding his own business. Suddenly, wham, falls into a hole, or is pushed, or trips, or slips, doesn't matter. Go boom into a hole, and then has to basically climb out again. The key thing about this is, again, it has that kind of beginning, middle, end. The beginning of that story is that, okay, you're in a state of order. Everything's going how you expect it to go. That's nice. A bit boring, but it's nice. Then something happens that you weren't expecting. You push a button and it doesn't do the thing it's meant to do. Okay, that's chaos. And if it gets really bad, like the air traffic control case, where the entire system goes boom, just shuts down, that's a hole. You are in a deep, deep hole. Okay, that's chaos. That's emotionally, oh my God. And all your customers are getting really pissed off. You know you're in a hole. And in the hole, you've got to do two things. You've got to figure out what you did wrong. Why did I fall in this hole? Okay. Well, I took my eye off the ball. I wasn't watching. I was too complacent. I was too comfortable. Second thing is, how do we get out of the hole? So what do we need to do differently? And what's interesting again is it's like order, chaos, new order. Because when you climb out of the hole, you don't climb back into your comfort zone, because that would be stupid, because you're just going to make the same mistake again. So you fall in the hole and you go, okay, that was painful. Let's not do that again. Let's do this differently from now on. Nobody plug Android phones in, please, while we sort this out. So that's a good way to get started, I would say, John, Edward, and I'm going to come to you and ask your thoughts in a second. But a really good way to think about your story as an IT specialist is, okay, 3 stages. You're going to go, my real story, the big story, this is the story I'm part of, is the order and chaos. Yeah, I'm an agent of order in a world of chaos. That's nice. I know when I hit a story because, emotions start flying around, mine and other people's. That tells me chaos has arrived. Oops. We've fallen into many, many holes, but we get out of them. And when we get out of them, this is what we learn. And I think those 3 cards, those 3 as a starter, will be a really good starting point for you. And then,
yes.
Okay, what do you think?
Well, thank you very much, because when I caught the deck, I had so many cards I didn't know where to start. So this is a very good starting point for me to read these 3 cards and think about it. Because what I said, it was very overwhelming when I received the cards, and I just didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah, Edward, you're absolutely not alone in that. We've had a lot of comments from people saying, "Oh God, bloody hell, there's a lot of cards here. Where do I start?" So as a result of that, we've started to create some blog content that kind of supports the cards. So it's all free content. So, for example, there's a one master. Which Brian is going to put some links in. There's a kind of, if you like, a one blog to rule them all. There's like a get started blog with lots of links to other bits of blog.
Okay.
And in one of them, so Brian is going to put the link in the there we are. In there's a post in there called like a 5-day plan. So your storyteller tactics arrive, right? And you're going, oh bloody hell, there's a lot of cards here. Well, here's 5 things to do in 5 days, using a different card each day. Now, okay, so if I can find that blog, I think it's and I'll sort of run through for everyone else as well what those no, a second. Okay, a second. So I'm just going to put a blog. There's another post there which might be even more useful than the one how to get started. Okay, The 5-day challenge. This is for anyone who it's basically okay. 5-day challenge is, let's put this in. Okay, so 5 days. So your cards have arrived. Give yourself 5 days. Try these 5 things as a way of getting yourself into the deck. So basically, the first one is a listening day, where you go, okay, I'm going to use a card called Storyish Conversations, which is a green card, and I'm going to use it to make sure that when people are kind of talking and explaining stuff to me, I ask them questions that draw the story out of them. Okay, and then the next day it says, okay, we're going to use movie time. Right? One of the simpler cards to use. We're going to use movie time to just tell a simple story. And then we're going to use story hooks and what's it about to write an email to somebody in a storyish way. And then, okay, we're going to use the social proof card to try and persuade somebody with us using a story. And then we're going to use, okay, we're now going to use order and chaos. And then we're going to try and actually set the frame for a big story. So there are all sorts of things in the those links we've just posted, which are about, okay, what do I do when the deck arrives? And what's interesting here, I think, is, so my experience from talking to a lot of customers is a lot of people seem to need something slightly different. So it's very difficult for us to say, okay, this is the way to tell stories. Start with this, do this, do this, do this, and you're done. Because team leaders need one thing, designers need another, academics need something, engineers need a particular kind of story. So there's a lot of kind of, it's quite tricky. It's like the Storyteller Tactics is like a kind of Swiss Army knife with lots of different blades, and sometimes people just want a knife, right? Just a chopping knife, and so they go, look, what do I do? There's too many blades, and okay. So, Edward, is that useful? A useful starting?
Yes, it was very useful. Thank you very much.
Okay, very good. Okay. Anybody else like to ask a question or make an observation about your experience so far with the cards?
Yeah, this is Nathan. Thank you
Hi, Nathan.
for sharing those links. That's really helpful. I was in that same boat as well of, purchase the deck because there are so many aspects at work that just call on us to tell a story. And so that's really helpful to have that. One of the things I've been thinking about is kind of preparing for, if it's kind of panels, speaking panels, or even just kind of workshops within the team, but this way to kind of just tell a story of lessons learned. And I see the movie time is called out in this blog article as a way to do that. Any other thoughts in terms of approaching kind of that subject, kind of thinking about wisdom to share or lessons learned?
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, in a similar way to what I was saying with Edward, if you really want to find a strong lesson, it's going to be about a mistake. Or no, it doesn't have to be. There's other ways you could learn lessons, but learning from our mistakes is look. I don't know about you, but I think those are the more we can learn from books. Yeah, we can learn from watching other people, but you really do learn very powerfully from mistakes. Okay, so you need to find a mistake that you can talk about, and emotional dashboard is good. Okay, I felt really bad when this happened because what I was trying to do was this. Okay, so straight away, what you've got to get from, okay, here's what I think you need to do is when we become, Nathan, can I ask you what's your line of work? What do you do for a living?
Yeah, of course. I just realized I didn't have a video on as well. So I'm in financial services, insurance, but my profession is really around digital strategy.
Okay.
So really operate across, kind of cross-functional, cross teams, but a lot of product development, a lot of marketing, strategy along those lines.
Okay. So anyone operating in the world of strategy, you're all doing the same thing. We all kind of do this in as far as we become more accomplished at what we do, become better at what we do. And it could be anything. It could be from designing strategy for people. It could be teaching a class, children. It could be anything. As we become better at what we do, we basically go through lots of experiences, lots of slices of time where we see things happen and we try things and they work or don't work, and we have emotional moments, and so there's lots of slices of experience, right? And after you've spent maybe 5 years doing a particular thing, you've had so many different experiences that you're very capable of taking the wisdom from in those experiences and drawing it up into this kind of abstract level. So you can say, okay, here's what I've learned about digital strategy. Okay. And you can tell us, if you like, the high level stuff. And what's great about that is, well, it's much quicker than trying to tell your life story for the last 5 years, which is impossible. Okay. So you're giving us the abstract, you're giving us the benefit of your wisdom. And also, let's say you're talking to Susan, and Susan's also an IT digital strategist, and Susan is also operating at this level. So actually, you're very quickly, because you're using industry terms and jargon and referencing, you can reference a certain, like lawyers can reference cases from years ago, and so you're basically you're talking in shorthand to each other, and the information is zipping between you at this very high level because you both have similar experiences at the low level. Okay, so it's fantastic. It's a very efficient way of talking. But here's the problem. When you come and talk to me, and I'm a potential client, and I might be booking you for some work, and you're talking to me, and you're talking at this high level, and I'm going, yeah, but I don't really know what you're talking about. Because anything that's at high level, anything strategic, anything that's to do with kind of, the big picture lessons learned, is very hard for me to see. And I can't see what you mean when you talk about strategy. So what you have to do is be able to drop down from the high level into a single moment of experience. And that's the story. And now your job is to think as I'm a panelist, or I'm going into a pitch with a potential client, whatever it is. Your job is to think, right, there are some high level points I want to make. And it may be, you may think, okay, realistically with the audience I've got, I can probably get away with making 2 or 3 high level points. So, okay, excuse me. Okay, so if you were to, for example, if you were going to be on a Nathan, if you're going to be on a panel tomorrow night talking about your subject, what sort of point give me an example of a point you might want to get across?
So one example, kind of as you were saying, there is a lot of high level discussions between like executives. So let's say, people that have come up in terms of, their experience over a couple decades,
Yep.
but often it's aligned within a particular function. So let's say, this person's a well-established financial advisor. This one knows a lot about marketing. This one knows a lot about sales. One of those topics may be just transformation journeys. So we think about, the digital revolution, the introduction of mobile devices. There are a lot of people now that are dealing with, let's say, data, right? How do we again start to take all the things that we know and start to build them around kind of customer first? So it's kind of thinking about just those stories, and I often think that way as well, just mistakes. But trying to just create that relatability of this is hard. But there are a lot of people that have done it before, and here's just some things to say. So in this, I've got a lot of just kind of scatter points of ideas and moments, but that's kind of where I'm looking to do right now, is how do I connect all of those dots around a narrative?
Gotcha. Okay. So you're taking something, you think, okay, with this particular audience, I want to get across the idea that there is a revolution, that people are handling data like never before. But there's actually there's a thread running through it, which is, look, we can put customers first in all of this. Okay. All of that is kind of high level strategic wisdom, if you like, that you've developed over many, many years. Okay. It's abstract. And because it's abstract, it's very hard for me to see what you mean. And also, what's interesting is you could have just got it out of some book. Right? You could have just picked it up on some like LinkedIn blog post, and you could just be regurgitating stuff you've read elsewhere. And when you get that sort of little whiff of bullshit coming off people, you're thinking, yeah, you've just read that. Yeah, you're just using words. right? I don't kind of get this. I don't quite believe you know what you're talking about, which is a disaster for your credibility. You don't want to be there at all. So I guess what you think is, okay, you make your little, you prep for the session for your panel. And you think, okay, there's probably three things I want to get across. One of them is going to be, look, the running thread is customers first. Okay, right. So what I need to do now, that's the abstract level. What I need to do now is go down into a moment where I realized how important it is to put customers first. Okay, that'll be one of two types of story. It'll either be a man in a hole story, like Edward experienced, where you thought you were doing the right thing, you realized you'd messed up, and you corrected. Or it could be like a rags to riches story of someone, hey, someone did this really, really well. There was a moment when I or one of my colleagues did this lovely success story because we put customers first. But you're getting into a moment. Interestingly, you can't tell a story about plurals very well. So you can't tell a story about customers, because what do customers look like? What do marketing managers, plural, look like? Well, it could look like anything. So what you need to do is go, okay, there's this woman called Selena. She's a marketing manager at an insurance company. Okay. Hi, Selena. And suddenly we go, okay, right, well, it's a woman called Selena. And so we start to build a little picture in our heads. And then you talked about how you helped her to do something amazing. And we're going, okay, now I see it. So you're basically constantly going back up and down when you're talking to people. You're going up and down between the big picture that you, the expert, can see. Because remember, you were there for all those slices of experience. You were actually there. That's why you know what you're talking about. You were there. We weren't. So you fit between the big picture up here and the little picture down here. So there's a card which you might find useful, in the explore section. And the card is called Data Detectives. Here we are. There's a card called Data Detectives, and it's basically about handling big picture and little picture stuff. And what it suggests to you is, look, the data, your massive experience, the wisdom is the big picture. So the strategy is big picture. So I'm telling you this because I know what I'm talking about. But we just have to take you on trust, unless we're experts like you are. So what you then have to do is go, okay, that's the big picture. Here's the little picture. So you zoom in. And the way you zoom in is just with two words. For example. Right. For example, zoom into one customer. Zoom into one manager. Zoom into one moment. Because then we can see it. Whereas we can't see the abstract. It's very hard to see abstracts. It's very hard to see data. But we can see, here's one moment. The other thing as well, that's on that card, Data Detective. The other thing that's quite nice about Data Detective is there's a little plan on the back of the card as well to turn your wisdom into a detective story. So you as expert, all of you are experts in something. Okay, you discover stuff as an expert, and the detective story version of this is you arrive in the woods and there's a body lying in the undergrowth, right? And your job is to find out how the body got there, who's the murderer. Okay, so that's your research. So you arrive and there's just tons of data everywhere. Right? There's just tons of information everywhere. And some of it's confusing, contradictory, but it's obviously, oh God, this is a mess. And your job is to sift through all of that data like a crime scene investigator in a forest, looking through or looking for clues. And you find a clue. Right? You find one thing as like a hair or a blood stain or an axe, whatever it is. You find a thing, right? And then you follow that trail until you find the killer. Now, interestingly, in a good detective story, what you don't want to do, right? I haven't got a detective story in front of me. I'll pop a he'll do. Okay, with a good detective story, what you don't want to do is open up the book and go, oh, I know who done it now, because there's no suspense. You open the book and go, oh, there's a body. Oh, I wonder who did it. Right? And then you keep going through the discovery phase and the clue and the, the false trail and the real trail and the insight, the moment. Oh, I think it's so and so. And then finally at the end, you go, oh, Susan did it. All along, I thought it was her. Right. Now, what's interesting is in some cases, it wasn't Susan. Yes, it was Susan. Okay. In some cases, people ain't got time for the murder story, right? They just need you to tell them quickly who did it. But in other cases, they have. And what you're giving them by giving them the data detective story is, hey, I saw all this mess. I sifted the mess. I found this clue. Now I'm telling you this is the killer fact. You're building up your part in the story. Yeah, turning it into a detective story where you are the hero of the story. So, okay, it's an interesting way of doing it. Like I say, sometimes I pointed this out to my wife, who's an academic researcher, that this is a good way of doing stuff. And she said, well, no, because with academics, they need to read the abstract at the beginning of the paper so that they know whether it's worth reading the rest of the paper or not. So you can't tease them and say, keep reading and I'll tell you. That's academics. If you're speaking to a panel in front of an industry audience, well, try it, see what happens. Now, Mark, I'll come to you in a second. Selena, hey, you're a marketing manager. Whoa, good guess, huh? Fire away with any questions in the chat, Selena, if you want to. Mark, let's see. Pitch perfect. Okay, Mark, tell us a little bit about what you're trying to pitch.
Yes, I'm an expert for organizational change, to say so. And I saw one of your YouTube videos about using actually Pitch Perfect to present the problem, highlight the opportunity, then focus on the practical steps until you release them with the promise, right?
Yep.
And well, I have my problem is that I don't really get the opportunity part. Is it the solution itself, or how can I build the opportunity? Because this is, the problem can be shown very, very, very clearly, and then the opportunity needs to take space, right? It needs to build up.
Well, I'll tell you what I think. I think the interesting thing about the opportunity space. So, okay, so the model for Pitch Perfect, just so people are aware what we're talking about, is like it's like a 4-stage. Yep. I'll just mark it out here. Okay. So the model kind of looks like that, where you start off on this side with a problem, which is a negative emotional space. Yeah. But there's also an opportunity to do something about it. Okay. Now, the practical steps become negative again. Just to recap for people who don't know the card, the practical steps, you bring people down again on the roller coaster, because if it was easy, we'd be doing it already. Okay, therefore you have to make it sound like it's going to be hard work, because it is going to be hard work. But the promise is positive again. So you're turning the pitch into a kind of emotional rise and fall. And I guess what's interesting here is you can kind of divide this arc into this is now and this is the future. That makes sense. So the problem is now, or very, very, it's coming. It's a now problem. The opportunity that you've spotted to solve this problem is also now. And then everything else, the practical steps that they're going to take are in the future. The promise of the solution is in the future. So I guess what it means by what I mean by the opportunity is, okay, if it was just a problem with no solution, you wouldn't be pitching, because you'd just be boring people and making them feel unhappy. Right. So the problem is, I am going to get old and die eventually. Right. Well, there isn't a solution to that. So I don't really want to hear that. So you're not pitching anything to me. Does that make sense? You're pitching something that I can't change. Okay. But I can, there's an opportunity because of medical advances and fitness advances and all sorts of things for me to live a very active life for as long as I possibly can. Okay. So what's changed? So the reason why the opportunity is there as a point in that pitch is, okay, so say you're pitching, remind me again, sorry, what kind of things are you pitching, Mark?
So if you are working in a business development unit, for example, and you need to transform the organization, right? That's your job.
Yeah.
And the problem is that you probably come from a technology point of view or from a line where you are the expert, right? But now you are in business development, and now you need to actually pitch the new solutions to your colleagues, right?
Yeah.
So what I do is I point out why they do it with too much logos, right? Too many facts, and they're trying to convince, right?
Yep.
But instead, there's a framework where you can position yourself, where you actually can use storytelling to actually reduce fears, where they can actually learn about the solutions, and where you actually build momentum
Okay.
that people,
Listen,
right? And this is the framework I
Okay.
teach to people. So now.
So a couple of things. Firstly, so the opportunity, the problem opportunity part of the pitch perfect. So the problem is clearly now, otherwise you wouldn't be there. You wouldn't be talking to them if they didn't have a problem. It's useful for you, I think, because sometimes we just feel overwhelmed by a problem. You can't see a solution. Okay, so you're coming in and saying, no, there is a solution. Well, okay, so what's changed? What's changed that you're telling me there's now a solution when I've been thinking for years there isn't a solution to this? I'm just stuck with it. So there's something that you've spotted, yes, that is a new opportunity, and that's exciting because whoa, I could solve this problem. I hadn't thought of that. Ooh, that's exciting. So pick an example now and say, okay, working from home. Okay, working from home is causing people problems because of lack of productivity. The new opportunity is, okay, well, you know what? AI is solving some of these issues. I've spotted something here in AI. Yeah. Or it's, look, people have got these amazing home office setups. So there's an opportunity here that we never had before. So you're spotting the problem, spotting a new, or something that you've spotted as an opportunity to get us curious and excited, lifting us up emotionally on that arc. And then you go, but it ain't going to be easy. This is not going to be easy, because if it was easy, you'd be doing it already. Okay, here's what we need to do. Bang, bang, bang. If we get it right, it'll look like this. You're back up again. So that's the first thing I'd say. The second thing I would say is it's also worth taking a look at. So use these two cards together. The second card to look at, as well as pitch perfect, is one called innovation curve. Because what the innovation curve does is it makes you think about where is your audience at. So everybody has like a thermostat setting for risk. So some people like high risk stuff. They can afford to take a chance, and they do, and they like it. Some people like new things just because they're new. Some people don't. They don't want something that hasn't been tested. So there'll be people out there right now who cannot wait to get their hands on one of those, Apple stupid goggle things, ski mask. Yeah. And then there's people like, oh, well, me, who's going, yeah, I bet that's, I'll wait and see if anyone uses it before I shell out $3,500. So we've got different risk settings. And so you're talking to people about business transformation. Hey, look, there's something new here. AI is allowing us to do this, right? Well, depending on where people sit on the innovation curve, that is either good news or scary news to them. That's the first thing. So you need to understand where they're at emotionally, temperamentally. The second thing it does on the back of the card is it says, look, the way to move people to adopting new things is usually to to point to people who are already doing it, to give them social proof. So you say, okay, now obviously if you're talking to somebody who's temperamentally a pioneer, they've got a very high risk setting, all you need to say to them is, hey, this is new. And they go, oh, it's new. And they're in. Right? But if you're talking to someone who's cautious and is going, yeah, but look, 3D stupid goggle 3D things from Apple, they're new, I get it, they're exciting, but do I want to shell out $4,000? Like, I don't know. I want to see someone else using them first. Okay. So the innovation curve card might help you think about, you going into that pitch, you describe the transformation, you describe the problem, the opportunity, the practical steps, and the promise. And then you go, depending on who you're talking to, look at this example here. Here's someone who's already doing it. Okay. Okay. Is that useful, Mark?
Yeah, kind of. I think I have to digest it somehow. So I have to try it next time.
Yes.
I was hoping for other recipes tying into building this excitement. How you actually present, or how you can build the opportunity that it's exciting, that it's interesting, that people want to listen, that they want to hear.
Yep. Well, listen, can I make two suggestions then? One is to look at story hooks, and these are devices that storytellers use to hook attention. So it's worth looking at story hooks. Also worth looking at, there's a card called Secrets and Puzzles, which is similar kind of territory to story hooks. All of these are devices that storytellers use to get people excited. Oh, and the other one, Rules, Cheats, and Rebels. So Rules, Cheats, and Rebels is a really good card to get people excited, because you present yourself as a rule breaker. And in story terms, we are very interested by people who break rules, because we want to know, are they going to be punished, or are they going to get away with it? And so rule breaking is and look, when I'm not talking about breaking health and safety at work rules. I'm talking about breaking,
trying something new as breaking the rule.
So all you need to do to set that story up, right, is start the sentence like this: everybody told me I could never. Okay. Now that sentence only ends one way, right? No one ever says, everyone told me I could never make it as a comedian, and they were right, I couldn't. Well, that's not a story. You wouldn't say that. Everyone told me I could never make it as a comedian, but look at me now, I'm on stage selling out to packed audiences. Yes? So if you say a sentence, everyone says you couldn't, everyone says you shouldn't. Yep. The next part of that sentence is never, and they're right.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone says you shouldn't, blah, blah, blah. And you know what? They're right. Well, what's the point in telling me that? You've wasted my time. So if you start a sentence, everyone tells you shouldn't, but. Ooh, okay.
Very interesting. Great.
So I'm kind of writing some new cards, by the way, to people. One of them is called Story Signals, and it's about words you use in sentences that signal, something is going to happen. Signal you're about to tell a story, and that's one of them. So here's another one. I always thought. Okay, you start a sentence with "I always thought." It doesn't end, and I still do. Because what's the bloody point of telling us that? If you say, I always thought, da, 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 right? I always thought it was okay for people to bring their own devices into work. Yeah. Until bang. Okay, you're signaling a story. So these are little tricks you can use to signal that something is going to change. That's what story's about. Chaos is coming. Okay, let's go try and get through a few more. So Rowan,
thank you.
D&D sessions. Oh, that takes me back. Where's Rowan? Hello, Rowan. So what kind of, okay, well, listen, right. Clearly, as you're no doubt aware already, you need the dragon in the city. Okay. And in adventure, anything that's worth keeping is the city. So the city can be a physical place, like a building, a town, a city, whatever. It can also be social space, as in a band of friends, a family. The city is anything worth keeping, anything you've got that's worth keeping. And remember about the city is, look, it's better than nothing. Yeah, but it's not perfect. Okay. So it can always be improved. So, okay, if you lived forever in the city, never left the city, you'd have no adventure. So that's worth thinking about. Then, of course, the dragon. Well, the dragon is obviously a threat to the city, and dragons come in many shapes and sizes. So it can be any number of different things. It can be another person, can be a change in technology, can be the weather. It can be anything that's out of our control and unknown. Always there. There's always something lurking. If you try and run away from it, well, if you try and ignore it and pretend it's not there, it'll eventually get you. So you can't hide under the duvet and expect to be okay. There's a dragon will get you. It'll probably be the dragon of depression if you hide under the duvet. Okay, so you've got to face it, and then you've got to think, well, what do we do? Do we move out the way? Do we defend ourselves? Do we go out and attack it? Do we exploit it? Somebody said, and I wish I'd thought of this, somebody said, look, there should be an option on the card for, there's basically, it says escape, defend, attack. And someone said, what if you train the dragon? Train the dragon to do what you want it to do. I was like, oh, that's a pretty good idea, actually. Because the dragon in Dungeons and Dragons is dangerous, but also full of treasure. But that is the same as life. So if you think about, we all went through COVID and lockdown. Okay, so COVID was the dragon for a lot of us, and it brought lots of chaos and disruption. But we wouldn't be sitting here now using Zoom, realistically, if it wasn't for that chaos. So there was a treasure there as well. That we've all learned how to do things in lots of different ways as a result of the enforced lockdown. So so Dragon in the City, good place to go. Secrets and puzzles, yes, another good place to go for a dungeon master. Where else? I would have a look at the card called Universal Stories, because it's basically about things which seem to apply across all cultures, and therefore make good material for story. So I'm just looking for the Universal Stories. Here we go. Okay, so conflict. Yeah, there's plenty of that in Dungeons and Dragons. Free will. Well, yeah, plenty of that. You have to make choices, and your choices define you. Okay, inconsistencies. There are always gaps between what we do, say, and think. So we say one thing, we do another. That's quite nice. Okay, fear and bravery, right and wrong. Oh, rites of passage. That's a nice one. So all cultures have rites of passage from one state to another, from childhood to adolescence, from adolescence to adulthood, from single to married, from parent. There's always kind of rites of passage. So whether there's stuff you can do in there around around what your characters go through. Clearly, in Dungeons and Dragons, characters level up. But is there something that's a rite of passage you can play with? Yeah, because you're absolutely right. It does depend on good storytelling. Listen, I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to try and deal with Selena's questions as well. Okay, working with young people on employability skills. Okay, work experience and further education and jobs. Case studies, brilliant. These have historically been geared to funders and reporting. I want to change the direction. Okay, to engage young people to be inspired and to self-refer. Okay, so Selena, if I'm right in thinking, if I've got this right, you want your case studies. At the moment, your case studies are stories you tell to your funders to say, this is where the money goes. Is that right? And what you want to do is to be able to tell stories to young people as well, to get them into the system. So to bring them into your process. Okay. Okay, so essentially, I don't know what your case studies look like at the moment, but back to what we were saying before with Mark, is that you can't tell stories about plurals. So you can't tell stories about young people. You have to tell stories about a young person. So I'm sure you do this already. I mean, the definition of a case study is it's one person's story. I guess so. In the ingredients should be, well, it should be like a movie time story where things happen and there's an emotion involved. Okay, it could be a man in a hole story. For young people moving through life, probably the best story arc of all is going to be either, well, there's three. Okay, there's three. Hang on a second. Okay. Okay, here's three story structures that are worth thinking about because they are so deeply satisfying that we can't get enough of them. First one is Rags to Riches. This is the classic growing up and coming of age story. Yeah, it's a Rags to Riches story where there's something in the child that emerges in the man or the woman. Okay, there's something inside the child that emerges into adulthood, and it emerges through adolescence, through the trials of adolescence. So that's a really powerful story. And what you're doing with that story is you're looking for there's something everyone else overlooks in the child or the teenager. And you see it and you allow it to come out. And then that teenager stands proud at the end because everyone can see he or she was good at something. Okay, so that's a really powerful growing up story. That's a good story, No Easy Way, which is, okay, you're trying to get to a good place, but you are going to hit setbacks, right? You might, have falling outs with your friends. You try and do the right thing. Your friends are trying to do the wrong thing. Yeah. So they drag you down and you have to pick yourself back up again. So No Easy Way is a really powerful case study story. And I suppose the one that goes with it sort of fits nicely is the story called Happy Ever Afters, because it's basically about, okay, we find a story satisfying when it involves somebody growing up, which is bang on for your target audience. When it involves them finding home or love or respect and doing the right thing. So all of these make for not necessarily a happy ending, but a satisfying ending to the story. So those three, Rags to Riches, No Easy Way, Happy Ever Afters, are really rich territory for all of your case studies, not just but ones to the funders, but also ones to the younger people. And I guess the advantage you've got, okay, a trick you might think about when you're using case studies for a younger audience is, okay, how does that conversation sound? So if a younger person is explaining their journey, their story to an older person, then they might use the first person pronoun. This happened to me. I did this, then I did that. That was hard, but I discovered this and now I'm here. Okay. What is the potential you've got here with young people talking to young people is that they're so close in age, right? They can be so relatable. So they can use pronouns like you and we, right? So they can say, look, you know what it's like when, because this is a young person talking to a young person. So you can use you and you can use we. We know what it's like when, because yeah, that's relatability. So if you look on, as well as those three story arcs, if you look on the card for story hooks, one of the hooks you can use is relatable writing. Yeah, to talk about we and you. So young people can do that talking to their peers in a way that we can't. Now, if I talk to young people and start saying we do this and we do this, there's a danger they're sitting there going, no, we bloody don't, old man. Whereas a young person talking to somebody 2 or 3 years younger than them, it's much, much easier for them to do that. The main thing you're doing, I think, my main bit of advice to you on that, in terms of getting those kind of case studies together, is obviously you need to co-produce them with a young person. So you need to sit down with a young person and co-write them. It's worth, as a little mental exercise, as you sit down and think, right, we need to tell this story, we need to tell your story. It's worth imagining the person you're talking to is sitting right there in front of you, and give him or her a name and a face and think, okay, I'm trying to reach 15-year-old girls who are thinking of dropping out of school. That's who I'm trying to reach. Okay, so we're going to have a 15-year-old girl. We're going to call her Susan. She's thinking of dropping out of school, and we need to talk to her to try and explain to her why that's not a good idea and what sort of support she can get. And so you make it as much a, when you're talking or writing, right? You're imagining you're talking or writing to one person, not a bunch of young people. You're talking to that one person. And then you can use you, we, you and me. You can use those relatable pronouns. So I would say that's, that is a really powerful way of approaching the writing process when you're working with a young person to get them to tell their stories. Okay, imagine your little brother's sitting over there. Imagine your cousin is sitting there. And you're trying to explain what you've done, what we understand, what they can do. Okay, that would be my advice. But think about, particularly, I'd say, think about Rags to Riches, because what makes a growing up story so powerful is at the beginning of a Rags to Riches story, right? The young child has talent, but nobody cares about that talent. They have virtue, they have ability, they have something inside, but nobody notices it. And by the end of the story, it's not just that they've got money or a job or they've gone to college or anything like that. What matters is people see their value. They're recognized. Okay, you've achieved something. So that's an incredibly powerful, that's the story we actually all want to be able to tell about our own lives. That's why it's such a powerful story. But it's an absolute natural gift for a story of young people growing up. So too is Happy Ever Afters, and so too is No Easy Way. Right. Okay.
Thank you so much, Steve. That's really helpful.
Good. Thank you, Celine. Thanks, Celine. I hope it is. Listen, if you want to everyone who's been on the call, if you're not already on the Slack community, Brian, if you could post a link to the Pip Deck community page, come on the Slack, because actually what we can have is can continue the conversation on the Slack. That's one thing. Second thing as well is look, we're really interested in if you take this bit of advice and you try to tell a story in a different way, we'd love to see it. We'd love to share it. So Edward, if you start telling an Order and Chaos story, and Mark, if you get your pitch perfect, and Selena, and Rowan, if you get a good dungeon story, and Selena, if you get a good case study, share them with us, because we love to see what you've done and how you've done it, and so do other customers. They really like to see what you've done. My voice is giving out, so I'm going to pack up. I'm going to stop recording.